Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. Between June 1984 and August 1985, a dark shadow crept over Southern California. Doors were locked, windows barred, and people slept with weapons under their pillows. But for many, it wasn't enough. A predator was out there, slipping into homes under the cover of night, unleashing unspeakable violence before disappearing into the blackness. He was eventually dubbed the Night Stalker. His real name? Richard Ramirez. This is the story of how one man terrorized an entire state and how he was finally brought to justice. A childhood steeped in violence. Richard Ramirez was born on February 29, 1960, in El Paso, Texas. He was the youngest of 5 children in a working-class Mexican-American family. His father was known to have a violent temper, often beating Richard with belts and fists. Home was not a safe place, and from a young age, Richard began escaping into the streets and into his imagination. Things took a darker turn when Ramirez became close with his cousin Miguel, a Vietnam War veteran. Miguel was proud of his brutality during the war and would often show Richard Polaroid photos of mutilated bodies and beheaded women. He even described, in graphic detail, how he had raped and killed women during the conflict. Ramirez was just 12 years old at the time. The tipping point came when Richard witnessed Miguel shoot his wife in the face during a domestic dispute. Miguel was arrested but later found not guilty by reason of insanity. Richard was left to deal with the trauma alone. It's no wonder then that Ramirez's teenage years spiraled into petty theft, drug use, and frequent run-ins with the law. He dropped out of school in the 9th grade and began drifting. But what started as minor crimes would evolve into something much, much darker. The killing begins on June 28, 1984. 79-year-old Jenny Vincow was found murdered in her Los Angeles apartment. Her body had been stabbed repeatedly, her throat slashed so deeply she was nearly decapitated. Her apartment had been ransacked. Police had no suspect, no leads. It was Ramirez's first known murder. In March 1985, he struck again. He broke into the home of 22-year-old Maria Hernandez, shooting her in the face as she entered her garage. Miraculously, she survived by instinctively raising her hands and deflecting the bullet with her car keys. Ramirez entered the home and shot her roommate Dale Okazaki, killing her instantly. That same night, he drove to another suburb and murdered 30-year-old Tsai Lian Yu in her car. From then on, the attacks escalated in speed, savagery, and depravity. He would break into homes in the middle of the night, often using unlocked windows or back doors. He raped, tortured, and killed, sometimes all in the span of an hour. His victims ranged from 9 to 83 years old. He used guns, knives, a tire iron, a hammer, anything he could find. Sometimes he spared lives, but only after forcing victims to swear allegiance to Satan. And that's what made Richard Ramirez stand out. It wasn't just the brutality of his crimes, it was the randomness. He didn't have a specific type of victim. He killed men, women, and children. Sometimes he murdered both husband and wife. Other times, he raped the wife and left the husband bound and gagged. There was no clear motive, no pattern, just chaos. Satanic symbols and a city in fear as the body count grew, so did public panic. Ramirez began leaving behind pentagrams, drawing satanic symbols on walls, on bodies, and even on a child victim's leg. He would shout, "Hail Satan!" during his attacks. He was no longer just a murderer. He was a symbol of pure evil. The media dubbed him the Night Stalker, and the name stuck. Angelinos lived in fear. Hardware stores ran out of locks and security systems. Parents wouldn't let their children sleep alone. People stayed awake at night, listening for any sign of intrusion. And yet, Ramirez continued his rampage, driving stolen cars, switching weapons, wearing gloves to avoid fingerprints. He was elusive. He was lucky. But eventually, he slipped up. The break that caught a monster in August 1985, Ramirez stole a car and left a fingerprint behind. That single print finally gave police a name: Richard Ramirez, a 25-year-old drifter with a criminal record and a long rap sheet. His mugshot was released to the press. News outlets plastered his face across every screen and front page. The Night Stalker now had a name and a face. The hunt was on. On August 31st, 1985, a group of civilians in East Los Angeles recognized him after he tried to carjack a woman. When he realized people were chasing him, he ran, but the neighborhood residents weren't about to let him escape. They tackled him, beat him, and held him down until police arrived. After more than a year of terror, the Night Stalker was finally in custody. The trial and the aftermath. Richard Ramirez was charged with 43 crimes, including 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, and multiple counts of sexual assault and burglary. The trial lasted over 4 years and cost over $1.8 million, one of the most expensive in California history at the time. In the courtroom, Ramirez showed no remorse. He often smirked and laughed during testimony. On the day he was sentenced, he turned to reporters and said, "Big deal. Death always went with the territory. I'll see you in Disneyland." He was convicted on all counts and sentenced to death by gas chamber. But he would never make it that far. Richard Ramirez died of complications from B-cell lymphoma on June 7, 2013, at the age of 53. He had spent 23 years on death row. Legacy of a nightmare. Richard Ramirez left behind a legacy of fear and trauma. His crimes tore apart families, terrified cities, and forced law enforcement to reconsider how they handled random spree killings. Unlike many serial killers, Ramirez was not methodical or calculating. He was impulsive, frenzied, and sadistic. He didn't want power or money. He wanted chaos. He wanted fear. And for a time, he got exactly what he wanted. But in the end, it was ordinary citizens, not detectives or investigators, who brought him down. A community, tired of terror, decided to fight back. And that's the final note to remember. No matter how dark the night, there is always a morning.